Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Keep 7 Gaming YouTube channel. And today we are playing Dimir Flash, which is something I really wanted to work out when I saw a lot of the cards that were being released with Ikoria, things like Slitherwisp, Sea Dasher, Octopus, Voracious Great Shark. I thought that Dimir Flash would be something that might be competitive. So I spent a lot of my wild cards on, the Dimir Flash cards that came out with Ikoria, things like Slitherwisp, Sea Dasher, Octopus, and Voracious Great Shark. And turns out the Dimir Flash is just not that good. Unfortunately, no matter how I kind of worked this deck, it just doesn't kind of cut it. There's just too much out there. The things that are kind of your win conditions, things like Slitherwisp, are just too interactable, and you have to spend too much mana to counter things. It just doesn't establish itself too well. You have plenty of interaction here. You have plenty of ways to counter, threats, to protect your creatures, to kill and interact with their creatures. Tons of ways to draw cards, which was a problem with Dimir Flash in the past. But I just feel like the setup that you have, and like no matter what you do to try to make Dimir Flash work, it's just not gonna work. It's a good deck, but it's just not great. If you have any feedback, if you have any ideas that could improve this, let me know. But to kind of get into the deck that I am playing, as far as creatures, we have 22 creatures, we have 13 instants, 25 lands, no enchantments or anything like that. Of our creatures, we have 4 Spectral Sailors. It's a quick and easy flash flying creature to get out on turn 1. And then it's also a quick trigger for a Brineborn Cutthroat if you need that. It also has the 4 mana ability to draw a card. Brineborn Cutthroat is obviously kind of your main body, something that your opponents are going to want to remove quickly before it grows too big. It's a 2 mana flash creature whenever you cast a spell during an opponent's turn, which is probably the only time you're going to be casting spells. For the most part, probably. You put a +1/+1 counter on Brineborn Cutthroat, and he starts as a 2/1. We have 2 copies of Essence Scatter, just quick and easy 2 mana creature removal, which is great. 2 copies of Quench, which is to get people to concede on turn 2. 3 copies of Heartless Act. It's just great 2 mana removal. Will probably get replaced with Vanish. That will be coming out in M21 when the next set comes into play on June 25th. But for now, this is great creature removal. If a creature doesn't have counters on it, which 95% of the time they don't, this will be effective for it. So it's good mana advantage if you to use this 2 mana spell to get rid of a 5 mana 5/5 or something like that. 2 copies of Cunning Nightbonder. I originally ran 4, but I just feel like this is kind of a dead card most of the time. The payoff of having spells you cast with Flash be uncounterable is, the odds that you come up against a deck that uses counters is pretty slim. And then the benefit of having the 1 mana less to cast them is good, but it's just not good enough. It definitely helps you put threats out there faster, but I think that the payoff of spending 2 mana to cast this card, it could be better spent elsewhere. We have 3 Brazen Borrowers, which is great for petty theft. That's mostly what we're using it for. Petty theft is obviously returning target non-land permanent and opponent controls to his hand for 2 mana. And then other than that, it's just a flash flyer with 3 power and 1 toughness. So you can get some power, or you can get some pressure on your opponent with 3 damage in the air if they don't have an answer for it. We have 2 Mystical Disputes and 4 Sinister Sabotages. I'm not a huge... Mystical Dispute seems to be getting kind of weaker and weaker. I just don't think that there's a lot, especially if you're playing best of 1, which is what I like to play. Mystical Dispute is kind of a dead card if you're not up against a blue deck. Mystical Dispute gets its value from being a 1 mana spell against a blue spell. So I only put 2 in here because I feel like situationally, like if you have one, that's great. But if you have one and you're up against a blue deck, that's great. If you have one and you're not up against a blue deck, it's kind of feels bad. So if you're into best of 3, which maybe you are, maybe you aren't, you can put more Mystical Disputes in the sideboard. If you're up against a blue deck, you just cycle them over and cut Sinister Sabotages. But for all intents and purposes, I like Sinister Sabotage better as your main counter target spell, because Mystical Dispute, as the game goes on, gets weaker and weaker, and if you're up against a deck that doesn't run blue, it's probably very weak and could become a very dead card in your hand. 4 copies of Sea Dasher Octopus. It's just another way to draw a card. If you have the combo of Spectral Sailor and Sea Dasher Octopus in your opening hand, you can get two damage in the air at flash speed and draw a card on turn 2, which is pretty powerful. And then, you know, as long as this is out there and doing damage, you continue to draw cards, which again is just the more card advantage you have with this deck, the better. So the more cards you get, the better. And then we have 4 copies of Sinister Sabotage, which is just a basic counter-target spell, Surveil 1. You could replace this with Neutralize, but I just think the cycling ability with Neutralize is weaker than Surveilling. I think Surveilling is way better, so I would recommend Sinister Sabotage over Neutralize. 4 copies of Slitherwisp, which is kind of your one of your win conditions. It's just a way to get incremental damage in on your opponent. It's a 3 mana, a blue, a black, and a black elemental nightmare creature with flash. Whenever you cast another spell that has flash, you draw a card, and each opponent loses 1 life. So the card draw is amazing, and the opponent losing a life is just kind of the cherry on top of the cake. And it's a 3/2, so it is a decent body. It can put some pressure on them with 3 damage. But I think the 2 toughness is where this card kind of drops off. Just 2 interactable. Bone Crusher Giant gets it. Lava Coil gets it. Shock gets it. You know, it's just not strong enough. So it can get removed too easily. So as great as this card is, I just don't think it's enough. And then we have 1 copy of Dirge Bat, which is a 4 mana or 6 mana mutator, 3/3 flyer. Whenever this creature mutates, destroy target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls. I just have 1 copy because the odds that you actually mutate it onto anything is slim. You could switch this out for maybe like a Lockmere Serpent, which I have in the sideboard, as like your top tier win con, as like a top tier win con. But really what I think this deck tries to focus on doing is just controlling the tempo of the game. You get some early threats out there, and then you just keep mana open for when your opponent starts playing spells, and then you just deny, and swing with whatever you're able to resolve on the field and keep on the field. We have 25 lands. It's pretty basic. Your Temples of Deceit. I'm going to get rid of that Dismal Backwater and just put another temple in here. I don't have another temple. That's probably why I had Dismal Backwater. Okay, so you've got your Castle Vantresses for scrying. You've got a Castle Locthwain to draw cards if you're in a pinch. 8 islands, 5 swamps, Dismal Backwater, and 2 Temple of Deceits for some scry, and I guess for some life gain. You can probably take this Dismal Backwater and make it a Deceit if you have 3 copies. 4 Watery Graves, a Bonder's Enclave, and 2 Fabled Passages. The Bonder's Enclave, useful for the card draw if you're in a pinch, but probably, you know, you're really going to have to be in a pinch to play that. But other than that, it's just used for the colorless mana. So yeah, that's the deck in a nutshell, and without further ado, let's get into some matches. Alright, our first opponent for the day is Bass 66, or Bass 66. Maybe he's a fishing fan, maybe he plays bass. Maybe he's a musician. Okay, so we have no turn 1 play, so it looks like Watery Grave tapped into Swamp, and then into Brineborn Cutthroat or Essence Scatter. We'll keep it. I like the Sea Dasher Octopus. We can mutate that onto a Brineborn Cutthroat and just get a flyer that just keeps growing and growing. 4 lands is a little bit harsh, but it means that if we draw into lands, that would be worse. We would flood. Okay. We might be in a mirror match. Maybe not. They didn't play anything at flash speed there, so. And we just pass the turn. I'm going to put a stop at the end of their turn, depending on what they play. We can either quench, we can Essence Scatter, or we can Brineborn Cutthroat. We'll quench that. No thank you. Teferi slowing us down to sorcery speed would kill our game. We gotta hope to all sorts of heck that he doesn't have another Teferi. If a Teferi resolves, it's probably game over. So now I'm considering flashing Sea Dasher Octopus onto Brineborn Cutthroat so we get the card draw. We can save Heartless Act. Okay. And we draw into a Slither Wisp. I think that was worth it. We have the Essence Scatter if they want to put a board presence down. And we have Heartless Act as well. We'll Essence Scatter that because reasons. We draw into a Sinister Sabotage, so that's pretty good. We'll just swing with our Octopus. Get more card draw. That's a Batra. Depending on what they play here. Might want to save Sinister Sabotage for Pacifism. Is that a big deal? Yeah, it prevents our card draw, so just say no to Pacifism. More land, we don't need more land. Okay, they had another Pacifism. That is what it is. I think that's it. That's all we'll do with our turn here. We'll let it go back to them. Winged Words. We can't do much about that. We'll just get the Slither Wisp out there. Since they can't counter it now. It gets some pressure on them too, because our next turn we can swing in with 3 damage. Is it worth playing Spectral Sailor now and getting the 1 damage in with Slither Wisp? Yeah, why not? Because with Slither Wisp you don't have to play it on your opponent's turn like you do with Brineborn Cutthroat. And I think we hold up Batra for a mutate target. You know, if they put something on the field we don't like, we can kill it. So who do they play next? What's your next move? We have Sinister Sabotage ready and an Essence Scatter. So we have 2 options ready. What do you want to do? Deputy of Detention, we'll Essence Scatter that. And we can't Sinister Sabotage. We didn't tap right. The auto tapper tapped incorrectly. So that sucks for us. Mutate would use a lot of our mana. I think we'll just draw a card here. Another castle. Attack with the 1/1 for now. We could just hardcast Batra too. We'll Sinister Sabotage that. Sea Dasher Octopus. Yeah, we'll take that. Something to put onto our Spectral Sailor. Also triggers our Slither Wisp. And then, yeah. Probably should play our Batra. We'll save it. And that's game. All right, picking up a game 1. Our next opponent is Colas 10. So it's a little bit slow. I don't see a companion, so that tells us nothing. We have nothing to mutate our Sea Dasher Octopus. We have no turn. No, we have no plays till turn 3. I don't think that that's good. This is better. We'll put Batra back because we probably wouldn't cast him until late game anyway. And we have no turn 1 plays, so we'll just play Dismal Backwater, getting the life. Nervous about playing a Brineborn Cutthroat at the end of their turn because of something like a shock. Okay, so we have a Sea Dasher Octopus, which we can flash onto the Brineborn Cutthroat now, make it a 2/2, but if they shock it, it dies, and we don't really want that. Do we offer the trade? I don't think we do. We have mana up for Sinister Sabotage. If he wants to swing, that's fine. We'll race. And I think now we can commit to mutating. We can still kill it with a shock, but we gotta risk it for the biscuit, right? Made it a 3/3, which is good. Got it out of the way of a... Okay, we'll just counter that. No thank you to Obnixilus's whatever. We get a card draw there. Put that down. We'll play out Spectral Sailor now, just make it a 4/4. Hopefully get it out of range of anything particularly bad. Not having mana up for a counterspell kind of hurts, but you gotta do what you gotta do. If he has a really big turn here, that could be bad for us. Necropanther isn't a huge deal for us. He can swing in with that, and we don't particularly care. It brings back Obnixilus's Cruelty. Ooh, so that is a big deal for us. Can he just keep bringing that back? No, it gets exiled. We want that Sea Dasher Octopus to live, so we have to do that. Another fucking Sea Dasher Octopus. Oy, oy, oy. We need something better. I probably should have put that away for something better, but... he can just bring that back when he attacks with Necropanther, so this is game. I like that idea, though. Necropanther on top of a Anarchist or whatever. You just keep bringing removal back. It's interesting. All right, our next opponent for the day is Erasmus. This is not particularly fantastic. No turn 1 play. And we have no way to cast Slither Wisp until we draw more. And that's 1, 2. That's 4 lands. I don't think that that's what we want to go with. This is much better. And I think what we'll put back is a Heartless Act for now. No turn 1 play, so we'll just play Dismal Backwater. Get that life gain. Potentially playing Flash themselves. Getting a Cunning Nightbonder, if they are playing Flash, getting her down quickly is pretty dope. Means that our flash creatures can't be countered. We still have the Quench open. Drawing into a lot of removal. We'll Quench that, because he can't pay the 2 mana. And that's game. So it wasn't turn 2, but we got him after got him after turn 4 or 5. Quench is the auto concede button. Alright, our next opponent for the day is Slam Gem. Not a huge fan of this hand. I feel like you need the turn 1 play. You have no place till turn 3 there. Much better. Again, getting rid of Mystical Dispute because I don't know what deck he's playing. We'll hold on to the Sailor. We'll put the Sailor down now. Being on the draw kind of hurts, because we could have quenched that. Him playing wide is pretty brutal for us. Quench a Paradise Druid so he can't ramp. See what's at the top of our deck. A Sea Dasher Octopus. I like that. Probably should have saved our counter spell for something bigger. But it is what it is. Put the Brineborn Cutthroat down. Threaten a block on the Emera, Soul of the Concord. It might even be worth trading. I think it is. Just so she can't keep building out wide. Let's get the Sea Dasher Octopus out there. Swing in. Get the card draw, Brazen Borrower. So we can return one of those tokens. Or actually, we'll probably get rid of the 0-4 wall. Okay, so he gets rid of our Brineborn Cutthroat. And now, I don't even think we need to get rid of the wall, to be honest. Let's just go for the card draw. Slitherwisp. We'll take a Slitherwisp. End turn. Whatever he puts the counters on, we will bounce. Okay, we'll Essence Scatter that. And then we'll bounce your 4/4. And that's... I feel like you win more games just because your opponent doesn't have the patience to play. Alright, so this is a redonkulous hand that we will keep and see how it goes. Our next opponent for the day is Big Lando. Three Spectral Sailors. This is Banana Lands. Up against a Breeding Pool. Overgrown Tomb to Growth Spiral. We'll put down our Sailor. Playing Sultai something. No counter spells for us yet, so that hurts. Could have shocked that in to get a Cunning Nightbonder down, but I don't think we're under too much pressure yet. Maybe an Uro is what we see here. Karn the Great Creator. So what does he choose? Stone Coil Serpent. Protection from multicolored with a reach and trample. So he wanted the reach. Well, he can hang on to that. And if he tries to play it next turn, we can counter it. Or we can Heartless Act it, which would be cheaper. We can save Sinister Sabotage for something better. We'll let that happen. If he wants to pay 1 mana for the Stone Coil Serpent, we'll just Heartless Act it, yeah. Oh, I should have played Slitherwisp there. So we lose a little bit of tempo there. That sucks. But we'll see. Maybe he just maxes out on... I'll just say no to that. We'll take a Sea Dasher Octopus. And if he wants to play a 2/2 Stone Coil, we can Heartless Act it. Next turn. There it is. Cute little guy. Oh, it has counters on it, eh? Okay. So what we can do is lose some tempo here and play Slitherwisp at the end of... Yeah, it has counters on it, so Heartless Act doesn't mean anything. Ashiok Nightmare Muse. So this is probably what we wanted to save our counter for, as opposed to what we used it on. Let's see. Wow. He had all the advantage in the world. He had that game. So that's just another example of you get wins with this deck without even having to play, which is kind of lame, but... Alright, our next opponent for the day is Bodemek. Playing red right now, which sucks. Okay, so he gets 2 1/1s. Decides not to swing. I don't think we need the cards there, and I'd much rather quench his next turn. I think. What is it going to be? Legion Warboss? Is this a Winota deck? Chandra's Spitfire. No thanks. I'd rather you didn't have that. Get a card here. Card is Cunning Nightbonder. Scorch could fuck us. Shock. I keep calling it Scorch, it's Shock. So, plays the Shock and plays Cavalcade of Calamity. Which sucks. Just put that in their way. Another Shock. Please tell me you have another Shock. Annex. Hardened in the Forge. Heartless Act would be great. We'll just put a Sea Dasher down. They lose both 1/1s. Another Sea Dasher Octopus, eh? I think we have to play a little defensive here. We'll keep our mystical dispute. Yeah, nah. And if he wants to swing with Annex, we can just double block, I suppose. I think the clearer we keep his board, the better. Oh, we can't even cast that. That sucks. We'll play our Brineborn Cutthroat. And we have Sinister Sabotage in hand. Grim Initiate. I don't want him to have 1/1s. But I feel like there's more important things for me to... whatever. Fuck it. I want a swamp. Yes, please. Also now his 1/1s run into the Brineborn Cutthroat, so... Oh, our mana is so fucked. So he can start swinging if he wants to. We don't have mana open for Heartless Act. I just say swing face. Get out another one of these boys. Get out another one of these boys. Get out one of these boys. And game. Oh man, we just got so lucky with that string. Boy, oh boy. Oh, beating mono red feels so good. So, post-game wrap-up. Yeah, I'm not super skilled at tempo play and playing, because like I feel like this deck is kind of the mirror, or kind of the opposite of what mono red aggro is, where it's like mono red aggro does take some skill. You have to know when the right time to play certain cards are, and there are certain aggro decks that have 68% win percentages because the people who pilot them know exactly when the right time to play certain cards are. And I feel like with this deck, it's the same thing. Like when you use your counter spells, when you cast and when you play your players, your big players with flash and stuff like that, it is super crucial. And in a deck like Dimir Flash that is already weaker than like Simic Flash, it matters that much more. I feel like a lot of the games, you probably, in the games that I've recorded, you can probably, I'm going to post a few where I lost, you'll probably be able to tell when I misplayed. You know, when I maybe traded something that wasn't worth a lot of mana. Maybe I countered a spell that wasn't worth a lot of mana. Maybe I countered a 2 mana spell. I countered a 2 mana creature with a 3 mana Sinister Sabotage or something like that. And as you saw, Mystical Dispute was pretty much a dead card. I rarely, there was rarely times where it was worth casting against, in the counter matchup. It's something that maybe you want to cut out entirely, put other counter spells in there, and then if you come up against, maybe just play best of 3. If you come up against the blue mirror match or something, you put it all in. But there were too many times where Mystical Dispute was just dead. I just wasn't up against blue, and it didn't matter. And then by the time it did, like, they could just pay 3 for whatever I wanted to counter. But it's all about tempo play. It's just controlling the tempo of the game, making sure you're getting rid of the threats of theirs that are important and keeping your threats alive. Batra probably could get cut. I mean, I drew it once, and I didn't even need to use it to destroy target creature or planeswalker. I would just cut it and put in Lockmere Serpent just because I love this. I love this card, and I wish it found a home somewhere that was like effective. But I just don't think Dimir Flash really can play this. But yeah, I mean, it's fun. You just got to control the tempo. You got to make sure you're using Quench at the right time, Essence Scatter at the right time, Sinister Sabotage or Mystical Dispute. You're using them at the right times, deploying your threats at the right times and stuff like that. It's just not good enough. There's just so many cases where you just can't keep up. If you're on the draw, it's terrible. I mean, if you're on the play, it's great because you get a land out there with a Spectral Sailor turn 1, and then turn 2 you can Quench or Essence Scatter or something. If you're on the draw, I mean, with any deck, if you're on the draw, it hurts. But boy, oh boy, does it crush this deck being on the draw. So, it's fun. You can make your opponents, Quench is a turn 2 concession button. As soon as your opponent sees that you play Quench, they just immediately concede. So you get some wins there. Heartless Act, you could probably switch Heartless Act out for like Tyrant Scorn or something, or maybe cut a couple, maybe go down to 1 Heartless Act and a couple Tyrant Scorn, something like that, especially in best of 1 when you're going to be playing a lot of aggro decks that have things with converted mana cost 3 or less, because Heartless Act was just so situational. There were a lot of times where I was playing it against decks where I needed to have, counter, I needed things that had counters on them removed, so like maybe Tyrant Scorn would have been better. But this is all stuff, in best of 1, that's just the luck of the draw. It depends on your opponent, what they're playing, and stuff like that. So, Slither Wisp is such a great card, and it's so fun and so awesome. You saw in that last game how it can just go off. I mean, if you just start spiraling your opponent out, and you just, you have them at low life in general, and then you just start, casting a bunch of flash creatures, you just drain them, and it's awesome. But it's just so rare that this survives. With things like Shock, and with so much removal out there, and with two power is just not enough. This is something I really wanted to work. Let's get into it. So there are things like Voracious Great Shark that came out, and this card is just garbage. This is just I wanted this. I thought that this would be perfect for Dimir Flash. I thought this would be the Lockmere Serpent, the new Lockmere Serpent, and it's just not. It's so bad. Paying 5 mana for countering a target artifact or creature spell, like 5 mana to counter a creature, and then you get a 5/4 body. It's just not good enough. Pouncing Shore Shark. This could potentially be a great card. 4 mana, return something to its owner's hand, and you get a 4/3 body at flash speed. You could potentially play Pouncing Shore Shark instead of maybe like a Brazen Borrower, but like, meh. I think Brazen Borrower is better. 2 mana as opposed to 4 for the same effect. We'll just look at Lockmere Serpent. I mean, I love this card. I have another Dimir control deck. I think this is better in a control deck as like an end game. This is like your Dream Trawler for the Dimir colors for blue black. If you control your opponent the whole game, and then your late game slam card is Lockmere Serpent. You play this down, 7/7 body at flash speed. Next turn it can attack, and it can be unblockable. You sacrifice an island. It can't be blocked this turn. Sacrifice a swamp. Gain 1 life, draw a card. So I just think that this is the dream trawler for Dimir. And I just don't think that, you know, the odds you get to 6, what is it, for 6 mana? I mean, yeah, maybe this is better instead of a Dirge Bat, because you're removing all their threats anyway. But really, I think this is mainly for Planeswalkers, if they have a Planeswalker you can't deal with. And the fact that you only have one, I mean, you could just mutate with Sea Dash or Octopus onto it and stuff, but maybe I just didn't have the patience. Maybe I was just playing too fast. But I think you really have to understand tempo. You really have to understand when to deploy your threats and when it's important to do that. Because otherwise you just get run over. But yeah, that's the deck. It is fun, but it definitely takes it takes somebody smarter than me to make this a lot more successful. I think if you're a smarter player than I am, you could really do pretty well. Platinum and higher, maybe, probably, but if you're going to be playing in Plat, you're probably going to want to play Simic Flash or Temur Reclamation, since it's basically the same thing, or close enough, right? So as far as Flash goes, it's fun and it works, but there's better out there that I would recommend. If you're going to spend wild cards, spend it on those, not on this, because this is just like a fun, if you have 4 Slitherwisp, you can throw this all together and just kind of have a little fun, but it's not really going to perform. But yeah, actually, let's change this card. Let's change it to that. There we go. So yeah, thanks for joining. Catch you in the next one.